What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from High on Android and DopeTechDaily.com, and today I'm here with the Huawei P8 Lite official full review. You guys saw me unbox this phone. The Chinese smartphone game is really heating up, and this is one of the contenders for the Unlock Budget Champions of the Year. You guys already seen me do the Alcatel Idol 3 here, and you also saw me do the Asus Zenfone 2, which we're actually giving this phone away. If you go check out the giveaway video, if you haven't already, to enter, Shane Starnes, Droid Modder X, and I are giving this phone away. So today, I want to get into the P8 Lite, talk a little bit about it, and give you guys my breakdown. I've been using it for like the last month or so. So here's the box. If you haven't seen the unboxing, go check it out. I'll link it below. The Huawei P8 Lite has a 5-inch 720p display, so not quite 1080p, but again, this is a $249 unlocked phone, so you get what you pay for. And the display is not actually terrible. I'll talk about that in a minute, but it is 720p. The other thing you get is a 13 megapixel rear camera, 5 megapixel camera on the front. This phone is running Android 4.4.4 out of the box, not Lollipop. The US version is running a KitKat. The international version, I understand, is actually running Lollipop, but we don't know when the US version is going to get Lollipop, so that's a downside, of course. It has Bluetooth 4.0. It's also sporting 2 gigabytes of RAM with a Snapdragon 615 processor inside. So of course, some mid-level specs, but for $249 unlocked, what can you expect? It's a really good value still. We'll talk about that. I actually got this phone for $199 in a bundle. So if you see my unboxing video, I got the phone, I got a speaker, I got a case, and I got a $50 Net 10 SIM card, prepaid SIM card, all for $199. At that price, this phone is a steal. The phone's incredibly light, about 4.6 ounces, and it's also pretty compact, 5.62 by 2.77 by 0.3 inches. So it's a pretty thin phone. And overall, if we take a look around the phone, the build is pretty nice. It's got this brushed gold on the side there, you can see. It's got a white, I have the white model. You've got the Huawei logo down here in silver. And again, gold trim on the other side with your volume rocker, your power button. You've got dual SIM slots down here, which kind of look a little strange because they have silver finish instead of the gold finish of the rest of the side. On the back here, you've got your gold Huawei logo. You've got some text down here from, I guess those are the mobile authorities. Yeah, you got your model, you got the Huawei Technologies logo, etc. Overall, the build is plastic, but it does feel really nice actually, and I actually like the look and feel of the phone. The power button placement's actually pretty nice. I like that a lot better than the Idol 3 and the Zenfone 2. You guys heard me complain about that in the comparison video of those phones. I did not like the the power button placement. I do actually like it quite a bit here. This phone also has SD card support, so if you want to use one of your SIM trays, you have dual SIM trays. So if you want to use the second SIM tray for a micro SD, it will take a micro SD card up to 128 gigabytes, and you probably need it because there's only 10 gigabytes of internal storage available. So if you have any pictures or movies or anything, or you want to put any apps on here, you're going to need some more storage for sure. The next thing I want to talk about are the speakers. The speakers are on the bottom here. You can see right there where the charging port is. These speakers are actually pretty loud, but because they are on the bottom, they're not as loud as the Alcatel Idol 3, which has its speakers on the front. And of course, they're not as loud as the ones on the Zenfone 2. I mean, not the Zenfone 2, the HTC One M9 with the boom sound speakers. So overall, the speakers are pretty good. I think for a phone that's $249, it's pretty hard to beat. All right, sorry about that, YouTube. I got a quick package. The UPS guy was at the door. Actually, some more products to review. You know, we always got new stuff coming in. Anyway, let's get back to what I was talking about. The speakers are on the bottom for the Huawei P8 Lite, and they're not nearly as loud as the front-facing speakers on the Idol 3 or on the Zenfone 2. Not the Zenfone 2. The Zenfone 2 has speakers on the back, and they are louder than this one as well, but not nearly as loud as the M9 or the Idol 3's front-facing speakers, but they're still fine, and you won't cover them up with your hand. I don't like having the speaker on the back because I always cover it up. The next thing I want to talk about is the screen quality. It is 720p, but I actually noticed in general this thing has a really nice display. The colors, you know, they really pop, and if you take a look, if you actually look at this screen, compare it next to the Idol 3, if you're using it at a normal distance, you're not going to notice any really big, huge difference in between the quality of this screen and the screen on the Idol 3. Now, obviously, if you look up really close, you're going to see some pixelation. It is 720p instead of 1080p, But again, you know, the price, it's really not that bad for the price. And I think the display actually has nice, crisp, sort of vibrant colors that pop. And for 720p, I think it looks really good. So I had no problem with that. The one thing that is a problem is the brightness on this phone is not that bright. So you see right now, I have it on auto, and it's really not that bright. And I'll show you guys if I turn it all the way up. So this is all the way up on full brightness. And it's really not that bright. It looked probably a little brighter on camera than it really is. But when I take this phone out into the Arizona sun, I actually cannot use this phone very easily. I need to use my Samsung or my LG, my S6 or my G4, because this thing just simply isn't bright enough to use out in the really bright Arizona sun. But otherwise, the display is really nice. The colors are beautiful. The display just could be a little bit brighter. I'd really appreciate that. But again, for the price, you can't complain too much. It's really not that bad. It's actually on par probably with the Zenfone 2. I still think the Idol 3, it could be a little brighter too. These two are probably, all three of them sort of could be a little bit brighter in my opinion. But that's probably something you lose with the budget phones, is you lose a little bit of that brightness and a little bit of that display quality, of course, as well. The next thing I want to talk about is the battery life. The battery life on this phone has a 2200 milliamp hour battery, and even though it's a smaller battery than some of the other phones out there today, the phone, of course, has the 720p display, so you still get pretty good battery life. Now, in my testing using the phone over the course of a month, I got anywhere from 3.5 hours all the way up to 5 hours screen on time, depending on what I'm doing. So if you're just doing some light browsing, etc., you're probably going to get maybe close to 5 hours. If you're doing, you know, watching YouTube videos, if you're playing a bunch of games, you're probably not going to get the same exact type of battery life. I probably got about 3.5 hours when I was doing more intensive tasks like YouTube videos and gaming on the phone. And gaming on the phone actually isn't that bad. I'll talk about that in a second. And actually, let's go ahead and get right into it. The software, that's one of the things that I don't like about this phone is the stock software. I'll show it to you guys. You can see right now I'm running Nova Launcher on here. If you go down to your apps, you can see and actually change it. So you got to go down to Manage Apps. They make it kind of difficult. Right down here at the bottom, it says Default App Settings. If you tap on that, it'll take you here. Your launcher, right now I've got it set to Nova. So if we take it back to the Huawei, which is the EMUI 3.0 launcher, you can see what it looks like. You see it's got these nice like rounded icons that chop off the top. But the one thing you'll notice is there's no traditional Android launcher. Look at this, pages and pages of icons that I have. It's like using an iPhone, which is really annoying, and I really could not get used to it. So I quickly installed Nova, because when I'm using an Android phone, I want to feel like I'm using an Android phone and not my iPhone 6 Plus. So if you want to change your launcher again, you have to go to Settings, and then again you have to scroll back up here to scroll down rather to Manage Apps, and then they kind of hide it. It's down here in Default Apps. Hit your launcher, change it to Nova, and then change it, and then you'll be set. And actually, with Nova installed, it's actually pretty usable experience, pretty fluid overall. I didn't notice a lot of lag when doing basic operations. Now, obviously, you see if you launch your apps, the apps launch really quickly. If you're doing a million things, you know, obviously it's not going to launch quite as quickly, but you know, you can see the apps launch pretty fast overall. So you know, there isn't a lot of lag on this phone. You know, you might expect there to be more with a Snapdragon 615 on only 2 gigabytes of RAM. But unless you're multitasking super hardcore, I would say you're not going to have a lot of lag on the phone. And overall, if you throw a third-party launcher on here, you can see it kind of looks more like a traditional Android experience. Of course, save for the one issue, which is, you know, you still got this weird sort of drop-down menu from the EMUI. And also the settings, I don't know, that's KitKat style, right? So, you know, once we get Lollipop, if we do on this phone, it might be a little bit better overall. But I definitely recommend putting a third-party launcher on here. That's not to say that EMUI doesn't have a lot of features. It does. It's just that I rather have a traditional app drawer. You know, it's got some cool features like turn your phone over in order to turn it off, and to sort of to dismiss a call or dismiss a notification. It has a lot of cool, you know, skinned features that you can use. But I'd rather have a traditional app drawer rather than those features. You know, I can still deal with the phone if I have a traditional app drawer. Otherwise, it feels like I'm using an iPhone, and that's pretty annoying overall. I already mentioned the available storage is low, but you can put a micro SD in here. That's one thing you'll definitely want to do if you get this phone, because with 10 gigabytes of available storage, you're not going to be able to put any games on here at all, really. So that's kind of annoying. The other thing I want to talk about really quick is the camera. The camera quality on here actually surprised me. The camera quality on here is actually really, really good for a budget phone. And one thing that I really like about it, the 13 megapixel camera actually takes some really crisp shots. And if you go look at my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, or if you haven't, if you go over there and follow me, you can take a look at some of the sneaker shots that I've taken with this phone, especially my purple Nike Free Trainer 5.0 Dornbeckers with a gold swoosh, if you don't know much about sneakers. That shot was taken with this phone, and it rivals some of the other shots I've taken with the G4 and the S6 in terms of, it was good lighting and everything, and I sort of rehearsed the shot. But this phone can take great pictures in good lighting. Obviously, in low light, the G4 and the S6 are going to blow it away. This is a $249 phone, but I think Huawei made some great strides with their camera software here and included a lot of features for a $249 phone. One thing I really like, which I want to show you guys really quick, is if you switch from the forward-facing camera to taking a selfie. So here I've got the rear camera and I switch. It'll tell you to look up at the lens. So you can see there has a little box to look up at the lens. That's helpful because then you can look there and take a picture that looks nice. So if you look up at the lens, it's going to help you take a picture that's sort of staring straight at the camera. So it's kind of hard sometimes when you're taking a selfie to do that. And so if you do look straight up at the lens, it really helps you take a picture looking straight at the camera. So that one's actually a little blurry. Let me try one more time. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I took one here, and you can see looking straight at the camera. It's a pretty good picture. I sometimes have issues taking selfies because I'm looking all over to the side or the left or the right. That sort of helps with this problem, and it's one nice little feature. I'd like to see other camera manufacturers include it. I don't take a lot of selfies, so it's not really a big deal for me, but it's something that a lot of people would enjoy. So overall, the camera quality, it takes nice, sharp photos, especially in good light. In low light, of course, it struggles. It's not going to be anything like a S6 or G4. Overall, though, it's a pretty good camera for the price, in my opinion. The next thing I want to do really quick is give a quick comparison to these two phones, the Idol 3 and the Zenfone 2. Now, obviously, this is a smaller phone, so it's hard to give, a one-to-one comparison. This is a 5-inch phone. These are both 5.5-inch phones. Now, I still think, to be honest, the camera quality on the Idol 3 they're all actually probably pretty equal in good light. But I think the Idol 3 is still better in low light. I took some criticism for saying that. I still think it's a little better in low light than the Zenfone 2, just my experience. The Huawei P8 Lite is probably the worst in low light. It's really struggles a little bit when you have little light. And then, of course, the display is better on both of the Idol 3 and the Zenfone 2 because, well, I like a bigger display, plus they're 1080p, so, you get that. And then the other thing is the Idol 3 has an 8-megapixel front-facing shooter, whereas the Huawei P8 Lite only has 5 megapixels around front. So at the end of the day, the Huawei P8 Lite probably gets about the same battery life. That's because it has the lower resolution display. There wasn't a huge difference in battery life across all three. So if I had to pick one of these phones, even though I love the build on the P8 Lite, and I think it's a great phone, I definitely recommend it if you want a smaller budget phone that does a lot of stuff. I think the Alcatel Idol 3 is still probably the #1 pick for me in terms of a budget smartphone. I think this is the phone that I would probably go out and get if I were going to buy a budget phone. It's got some cool features, it's got a good camera, it's also got the front-facing speakers for media, it's got good battery life, and it's got a good build. So overall, I still pick the Idol 3. Not that I'm putting down the Zenfone 2. Some people are like, wow, you don't like the Zenfone 2? I do. It's the fastest of all of them for sure. 4 gigabytes of RAM, can do the most multitasking, but not every average user is running a million apps. I do for work, but not everyone is. Most people are running Instagram, Facebook, a few things. Both of these two phones, the P8 Lite and the Idol 3, have 2 gigs of RAM and can do those things just fine. So if you're just running everyday apps, no problem. But I still pick the Idol 3 as the overall winner. But my overall judgment on this phone here is that this is a great value for $249. If you want a smaller phone, 5 inches, that does a lot of things well, and I think it actually has the best build of all three of them. I love the build on this phone. I would highly recommend picking one of these up if you're interested. There's going to be a lot more Chinese manufacturers coming into the US, so if you're interested in seeing what Huawei has to offer, check out the link in the description and pick one of these up for $249. All right, guys. Well, that's been my review and comparisons of the Huawei P8 Lite. I like this phone a lot. I've got some more content coming up. Please check out dopetechdaily.com, my brand new site. The link's in the description so you guys can see what I've been up to. New projects and giveaways will be posted there. You can also check out what I'm doing with sneakers. You guys know I've got all of the sneakers going these days. Huge sneakerhead, so check out my shots on Instagram as well. Please go enter our giveaway for the Zenfone 2 if you want to try to win it. I'll link that video below. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video.